This is Catherine Cespedes, and you are listening to Yogini from the Block, where we talk about taking spiritual practices and spiritual principles off of the yoga mat and into our real lives. You can listen to this bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, and anywhere that you catch your podcasts. Hello and welcome. Before I start off on our episode for today, I wanted to encourage you, if you haven't already, to go ahead and click that subscribe button. In the future, I will be doing a little bit more of these so that you'll have smaller little snippets of messages from me. And this way, if you're subscribed, you will never miss a beat. Here I am. My name is Catherine. As you know, this is episode 15, Los Tres Amigos. Let's talk about fear, anxiety, and worry. And I am here today with my wonderful producer, John Beaton.
Good morning, afternoon, evening. This is generic time of the day when you get this, right?
Yes. So I was talking to John when I came in. We always have like these little catch-up moments right before we record. And I was letting him know that I was taking this class, which he had recommended me to, called Thrilled to Be Alive with Jake and Hannah Eagle, which is absolutely amazing. And I've also started prac. So I have practitioner studies. We talked about it a few episodes ago about how by episode, what was it, 70 or 74, that I would be completed and done. So here in episode 15, I have started and begun.
So you were invited to take the journey.
Yes. So you will be taking this journey with me. And this is very, very exciting for me. So Los Tres Amigos, right? The reason why I decided to name it this is because for such a long time, anxiety, fear, and worry, for me, have been something that I want to stay far away from, right? Something that I know that these are fleeting feelings, like they are not me. I know that they come and they go, and I just try to get rid of them as soon as they come. They're like those visitors that knock on your door and they're trying to sell you something, right?
So are you stuffing them, or were you?
No. I would entertain them for a little while. So I'd
entertain
them? Yeah. I'd be like, hey, what's up? Okay. Like, you gotta go because I'm ready to feel peace and happiness now. Right? Yeah, and This is fun because we're personifying these feelings, which has been a part of my journey. And the reason why I share my experiences is because I only know my experiences. So if this resonates with you, if this speaks to you, then of course that's one of the reasons why you're listening. Go ahead and shoot me an email at yoginifromtheblock@gmail.com and let me know what part of these podcasts and these episodes really resonate with you. And I would love to hear your story. And
you'll really respond to those.
I will. Real life. I will respond.
And on the podcast too? Is that something you want to do?
Yeah. I will ask permission from those that email me if I can share that story.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm. So, again, I have personified these feelings. I have, quote unquote, dealt with these feelings. And then I created like elixirs of things that I would do, right? So I wake up in the morning. I do an hour meditation. I would sage myself up, right? I would do my prayers, walk out the door. I have created a recipe for perfection, a perfect day. So anytime worry came in, I'd be like, I can't deal with you because I've already done that, right? Like, we've already done this worry. Come on. Anxiety, you too? What are we going to do? And fear, the three of you are like, they never come by themselves for me anyway. They always come together. And it's the reason why I've been pushing them away is because I love to feel love. I love to feel joy. I love to feel passion. Like, these are good feelings. And of course, these are higher vibration feelings. And what I learned this week was that there is something to learn and understand through fear, worry, and anxiety. And that is the story that we tell ourselves, right? So this week, Thrilled to Be Alive. This week on Thrilled to Be Alive, we are really working on the stories that we tell ourselves. And again, I've been doing a lot of work. So I'm like, I've already done this. I've worked through all my stories. But the thing is that we never stop telling ourselves stories. It never stops. So for me to get here, I told my story that I have to get ready by this time and I have to be out of the house by this time. It's a story. I don't really have to, because I ended up sitting in the park, like the driveway, for like maybe 5 to 10 minutes because I had time. So everything is a story, which is wonderful. That story about me preparing myself to get here is valuable for me at this time, because I can use it and it's productive for me, instead of worrying about me being late and all these other things, right? So worry.
So it's useful for you in advance to tell yourself the story, arrive early and relax, and not have worry and anxiety. Wow.
Yeah, that works for me. However, worry, anxiety, and fear show up no matter how many times you meditate, no matter how many times you pray. And what I realized was that they're not necessarily my enemies. They're not. They are there for a reason, and they're there for the reason that there's a story embedded in me somewhere that keeps calling them back. So I'm thinking, why do you keep showing up? Like, nobody invited you here. Ain't nobody called you to the party. But I did. It's like I kept sending them invitations, and every time they showed up, they were like, okay.
Do you know what the invitation was?
The stories. My story is their invitation. My story of, oh, I'm always running late. Or my story of, if I don't do X, worry shows up. If I don't do Y, fear shows up. If I do X, Y, Z, whatever, worry, fear, anxiety show up. So I keep going back and forth between what I should do and what I shouldn't do, keep shitting on myself, right? And this week, what I learned was that I kept pushing them away, even though I was the one inviting them to begin with. And so what I'm doing now, and who knows? I do know. In a month or two, I'll have a different way of dealing with this, because we're constantly growing and we're constantly evolving. And this is where I am in my phase right now, where I recognize that I am inviting fear, worry, and anxiety into my life, where I can say, okay, now you're here. Let's be friends. And what happens, what blew my mind is that the moment that I said, okay, you may stay. How may I serve you? And I was the best guest, like the best hostess to my guests. They were like, you know what? We really got to go. And they left. They just got up and left. And at first I felt guilt. Guilt was a new one that just showed up. I was like, where'd you come from? I felt guilt because I was like, why was I being so mean to them all this time? And so I had this conversation with Kevin, which you guys met, episode 14. And he did the strangest thing, because I didn't tell him about any of this. I didn't tell him. He basically, I told him, I was like, well, Ego right now, she's hurt, so like, leave me alone. And he talked to her. He was like, all right, can I talk to Ego real quick? This is like a legit conversation. He's like, can I talk to Ego real quick? Because I just want to tell her that I love her. I just want to tell her. And he was the best hostess to this feeling that I was feeling. And he was like, don't like beat her up. Don't do that. I'm not trying to like kill her or get rid of her. Like, why are you doing that? He was like, that was never my intention. And he literally had a conversation with Ego for like, for 5 minutes, uninterrupted. And mind you, like, I didn't answer because he was having a conversation with my ego. And what I realized was that once again, what was done was that these things that I thought were like, oh my God, stay away from ego and really try to get rid of ego and worry and anxiety. They come and go, but peace is always there. Like I know these things. I know this. And I think that's what like created this like, this disconnect within me. Cause I was like, I know this, but what am I going to do knowing that already? So what I did was that I allowed them to be there, and then they themselves were just like, thanks, we gotta go. What he did was the same thing, where he was like, Ego, I love you. Like, I love you. Thank you for protecting her all these years. Thank you for protecting her today. I don't know what it was you were protecting her from, but you don't have to. So again, he's having this full-blown conversation with her, and she's like brushing her shoulders off, and she's like, yeah, I know. I'm good. I'm fine. Everything is okay. And I realized that there is this disconnect between who we want to be and who we are in that moment. And what happens is that we shun this deeper part of ourselves that really helps us. It helps us for a while, which is why it shows up, you know? And in accepting, in embracing that part of me, I was able to move on and release that story and say, oh, I don't need that story anymore. I don't need to do these things by myself. I don't need to work through my emotions on my own. I can communicate with someone else about this. I can open up and it'll be okay. You know, because these stories that are like ingrained in our bodies, and we learn this in yoga, right? That there is stiffness in our bodies because we're really holding on to something. We're really holding it there. And our brain is also trying to protect us, because if you move your arms too far out, it might start hurting. Why? Because your arms don't go that far out normally. And so your brain says that's not safe. Why? Because that's a story. It's all a story. And if we sit down to think about the stories that we tell ourselves throughout the day, we can really start weeding out what serves us, what works for us, and what doesn't. And so during that conversation, what I really had to do was that I had to be okay with letting go. I really had to detach myself with thinking that worry was bad and happiness was good. It really just is a story. It's a story. And embracing them both, I was allowed to feel more freedom, which is my ultimate number one feeling on the planet. That freedom, that, oh yeah, I can breathe. You know, that, oh my goodness, this is good. I can do this. I can do this.
I know what you're saying. Before we got started, we were talking about this keto alkaline diet. Mm-hmm. So I've been having overwhelmingly feelings and senses about well-being. Mm. And it's so freeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is, I want to encourage, because I feel like there's this dissonance between where we want to go and who we want to be and who we are right now. And so for me anyway, when I start working out or I start a new diet, I'm like, why didn't I know this before? Why wasn't I doing this before? And there is this judgment on who I was, and that doesn't feel good. And thus I am also kind of creating my own resistance. I am creating my own resistance, even though I'm on a better path, because I'm judging what I didn't do before. I'm judging what I just started doing now. And that's almost like taking 3 steps forward, taking 2 back. So where are we really going anywhere? We're basically moving ahead, but we're not moving ahead as quickly as we could as the spiritual, magical individuals that we are, because of this judgment. And again, this judgment is what it is. It is what it is. But do we need to do it that way? Do you need to? Is it okay to let it go? Is it okay to say, I wasn't doing that before, and that's okay? Is it okay to say, I was worried last night, and that's okay? Is it okay to say, I'm feeling happy right now, and that's okay? You see, as I move forward, I think of ways that I can show up in this world and be bright and shiny and helpful and loving and inspiring. And I'm also going through my own stuff. I'm also going through my own human experience, and it's quite wonderful. It is, because I wake up and I'm like, holy moly, that was grand. Like, what just happened? And really what I want to highlight is the human experience. The human experience in which I can say, that happened and that's okay. This is where I am now. But what she did, it's okay. It's okay because she didn't know. Or it's okay because she did know, but now I know better. So I'm not judging, and this comparison thing. So when I started this Thrill to Be Alive, this class is really about going from safety consciousness to heart consciousness. And for someone that is so outgoing and talkative, when I get into these classes, I shut my mouth off. I got to shut it off, and I listen. I really listen, and I listen to how the facilitator is speaking, how the facilitator is behaving, how the facilitator answers questions. I'm really keen to all these things because it enlightens this curiosity in me, right? So the whole time I basically stayed quiet, and Jake Eagle, who is our teacher, he looks over and he was like, "Catherine, do you have a question?" And I was like, "Oh crap, do I have a question?" And I did, but I muted myself just in case anything came out. And he was like, "What's your question?" And I wanted to know, what is the difference? What is the difference that he sees in himself from the beginning of this course to the end of the course? What was that for him? And what he said to me was the comparison. He stopped comparing. He stopped comparing what he was doing with other people. He stopped comparing what he was doing with himself in the past. He stopped that comparison. He finds himself not having those kinds of internal conversations with himself. So I thought, oh, that's cool. That'd be nice to do. But I can't compare myself because this is what he's talking about. And that really stuck with me. And I didn't know how much it had really found a space within me that resonated with me so profoundly until this week. Where I was like, I cannot compare who I am today with who I was a week ago or a month ago or a year ago, because they're completely different versions of me. And what has been happening since, I don't really know. It's been happening for a while, but there was this one day where I basically said that it was okay to let go of the story of who I was to be who I've never even thought about being before. And the reason why that comes up for me today is because I was listening to Lisa Nichols, and she talks about her experience, and she cries every time she tells her story because she feels just how she felt that day. And her story is basically she couldn't afford diapers for her baby. And so she puts her hand on her baby's belly and she said, Mama's never going to be this broke again. She's never going to be this broke or broken again, is what she said. And so every time she tells a story, she tears up, and the audience is tearing up because it's a very emotional thing to witness and to hear. And this is what caught me and my whole being, is when she said, that day I was willing to allow myself to die. I was willing to allow the person that I had been to just disappear and no longer be. I was willing to change everything about me. And she mentions also that it happens to be that she gave herself this space because she was at her rock bottom. And so when I reached that rock bottom for myself, I realized that I was okay with that. But in that moment, that quote unquote rock bottom was the endless possibility. There was freedom because I was no longer holding these stories of who I was and who people wanted me to be or anything, because I was at rock bottom. Clearly, that story wasn't working anymore. And it was easier for me to let go. And the magical moment in that is that I was like, holy moly, every time that happens, I'm able to create and manifest so grand and so big that I couldn't even imagine it if I wanted to. I couldn't have imagined that I would be here from 2 years ago doing the podcast on episode 15. Hallelujah. That's not something that would have showed up if I would have kept my story. And so now what I'm also thinking is retelling my story. Does it have to be so painful and dark and rock bottom and sadness? Because there is magic in that. There is transformation in that. That is how I saw it. And yet, I started prac, and Reverend Christian was talking about how if you're scared, there's no need to be. He was like, this is a joyful experience. You're going to dive deep into who you are. So if you're scared, then go ahead and do that if that's what you want. But that's not my motto. You can have a good time as you're diving deep into who you truly are. There can be joy and fun and excitement in this. And so not to say that the other feelings are not welcomed. It's just we set ourselves up for this. We really do. So I decided to embrace it. I said, I am really scared. And I'm so excited because I'm so scared. And there is a little worry. But I am so curious as to where this worry is coming from. Like, I know I'm going to find something. So I'm really curious about that. And I'm a little anxious. Only because I know I am so ready to see the woman who I become. And I'm okay with watching myself go through it. And so really integrating los tres amigos, these three strong emotions that have the capacity to create if we learn to work with them as well. So there is this fine line and this emotional dance between what it looks like as opposed to just shunning them out of the party completely and not allowing them in. Because then what happens is that they seem to multiply. They're like magical. They multiply and they surround your entire venue with more of it. And so what happens is that for me anyway, I end up wanting to go out more or spend more time alone because I know that the moment that I face what is happening, it's going to get bigger. And that's not really what that is. That's not really what that is. But the moment that I'm able to embrace fear, worry, and anxiety, they show up and they're like, okay, well, my feet hurt. I'm done partying. This was good for me. And they leave. And they leave. And that's just there. Like I said in the very beginning, these emotions are very fleeting feelings. They don't really stay too often. Right? And usually when they stay the longest is when we fight with them. Right? It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to, but the more you fight with it, the more they stay, the longer they stay, the heavier they get, the bigger they become. But I'll just invite you in, see what it's about, like give you tea and cookies and whatever the case may be. They decide to go elsewhere from the nothingness that they came from. And who knows, maybe I've transformed these feelings into something grand for someone else or something grand for myself. Because all these things are... So we understand that energy is... You can't get rid of energy. It's you can't damage energy. You can't really do that, but you can transform energy. It can be moved into something else. And so my thinking is that all I'm doing is that I'm transforming worry, fear, and anxiety into something that works for me, into a story that serves me, into something that is so joyful and so beautiful to watch. And just so you know, and I think you've heard this, I don't do this alone. I'm not doing this alone, which is a big story, a huge story that I've been carrying around, that I've done this alone. I moved across the country alone. I'm here in California alone, but it's not really true. It's not a true story. It's not. I've had so many beautiful, wonderful individuals that have been assisting, that have been showing up like the angels that they are to give me some of their light and insight and joy and comfort. And some have stuck around and helped me through it, and vice versa. And others are not around, but they left something. They left an imprint, a very strong column in this foundation that I'm building for myself. And in Los Tres Amigos, I would have to encourage that the individuals that we surround ourselves with are loving, supportive, and genuine. Because sometimes genuine doesn't come across as kind, but it is what you need. But remember that there's always love. There's always love in there. There's always this, I'm just telling you this because you're bugging. You need to know how much you're bugging right now. And so the friendship factor, the community factor, finding that community, not just in one person, but in a community. That means there's a lot of people. You know, I not happen because I clearly created this for myself, to be in a center where there are all these individuals of high consciousness, like buzzing on like high, like not like drugs, maybe, I don't know. I highly doubt it. But they're happy. They're really feeling it, and you can feel it. You can feel it. And some of these people I really attract to, and some of them we're just not, best friends, and that's okay. And yet those relationships transform over time too. We're like, oh, I see. We can do this too. And then you find that no matter where you go, once you start honing in all these, your own emotional intelligence, one, and the magical being that you are, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you do. You are always shining. You are always bright. You are always inspiring because you've done the work. And so I really want to encourage finding a community that really embraces you for the magnificence that you are, and being that individual that you're seeking. Because the moment that you start being it, you get more conscious beings to you. And it's funny because I remember talking to someone from the Bronx, and they were like, oh, well, I can't find a community here. It doesn't exist. And I was like, I was there. There were a lot of high conscious people there. So maybe you're not looking, or maybe you're not attracting them. Like, are you being the opposite of what you're looking for? That's okay. Just recognize that that's what you're being. And if you're willing to let it go, then go ahead and let it go, or hold on to it. See how much longer you can hold on to that. But once you're uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable. And that's okay. Sometimes you sit in that discomfort until you're like, all right, I need to get out of this dirty bathwater. And that's okay. It's really about loving yourself so hard, so much, so big, so that other people know how to love you too.